r/nosleep. Posted by you/pink. Fever 19. I stayed at the new luxury hotel with my best friend, but on our very first night over, I was given a set of rules that instructed me on how to stay alive. Part 1. My best friend, Trina, and I have been planning our dream trip to California for years now, but after spending the first night in Beverly Hills' newest and most luxurious hotel, I'm not sure we'll be around in the morning to actually enjoy the rest of our stay. You see, everything was great in the beginning. Of course, the plane ride was awful, and listening to a child cry for the next 5 hours during any flight would drive anyone crazy, but after we finally landed, it's safe to say the wait was definitely worth it. It's beautiful here, and I was hoping we would wake up early to just relax and walk around the city after a nice breakfast, but at the moment it's currently 1 in the morning, and I'm doing my best to ignore the thing trying to get my attention by the window. We wanted a luxury experience on this vacation, so we put in the extra effort to save up and spend a couple of nights in one of the city's newest and most popular establishments, the Recreation Hotel. It was amazing when we got here, and the staff was so friendly it's like we've known them for years. Nothing felt wrong, and, if I had to bet on anything, never in a million years would I have ever imagined this place to be so terrifying. Trina was the one who found the letter in the drawer of her nightstand. She laughed, thinking it was a weird prank left behind by previous guests to spook whoever found it. Inside was a list of rules, and now I understand that whoever left this behind for us wasn't trying to be funny at all, but was rather giving us a chance to stay alive. It looks like I have some time at the moment, so I'll tell you what they are. Not only will it keep my mind off things, but this will also be a warning to anyone who reads this, so that they know to never book a stay in this place. 1 after 11, make sure you turn off everything in your room. This includes cell phones or any sort of noise machines you might have brought with you. They will use it to try and talk to you. 2 If you fail to complete the first rule, you might start hearing them call for you. Ignore at all cost. Never respond to them, no matter what they tell you. 3 Make sure your curtains are closed the moment the sun goes down. Do not open them even if the noises from outside stop. They will also try to get your attention that way. Over time they will grow bored, but no matter what, keep the curtains closed. 4 At around midnight, it's possible a bellboy will knock on your door and ask you if you ordered room service. You must ask him what he brought you. If he tells you the usual, don't open the door. If he tells you anything else, tell him to leave it by the door. Wait until he leaves before retrieving the dish. Never by any means look through the peephole to see him. 5 If you retrieve the dish, don't ever eat what's in it. Instead, dump it all in the waste bin. 6 Like the bellboy, it's possible the landline in your room will start ringing for you. If you don't hear it ring at all, then I'm happy to tell you that you're free to relax for the rest of the night, so long as you continue to follow steps 1 to 4. I would also advise that you look for another hotel in the morning, because you absolutely never want to hear the phone ring during your stay here. 7 If you're unfortunate enough to hear the phone ring, pick it up. A woman will tell you to do 3 things, however her requests vary each time she calls, so I can't tell you what they will be. But no matter what she tells you to do, those tasks have to be completed. If you fail any of them, she will come to you and complete them herself, but she won't be happy about it. 8 Absolutely never ever leave your room unless you're instructed to do so. If you under any other circumstances break this rule, you will never be found. 9 Your bathroom light will come on at some point, and you'll hear the toilet flush and sink start to run like someone's just finishing up their business. You must be in bed when this happens. Close your eyes, and do not open them until you hear it leave your room. Make sure you also hear it shut the door. 10 You will hear someone outside your bedroom running up and down the halls. This is when you look through the peephole. If you see a little girl, don't open the door, but tell her that her mommy is worried about her and is waiting downstairs. If you see a little girl and a little boy running around, open the door and ask them nicely to play somewhere else. The little girl might ask you, do you want to play with us? Tell her you'll play with her in the morning. Whatever you do, never tell her no. The little boy might tell you that they're lost and they need help finding their room. Kindly remind him their mother is waiting for them downstairs. Only shut the door after they leave. 11 The phone will ring again, and you will be asked to do another set of tasks. Complete them once again to avoid her from coming to do it all for you. I promise you, it's best if you don't meet her at all. 12 If the lights come on suddenly, you need to make your way into the bathroom. Look in the mirror and tell your reflection now's not the time. Maybe later. If the lights go out again, you're fine. If they don't, ask your reflection, what time should we meet again? If your reflection responds, thank it, and only take your leave when the lights finally go out. 13 Pay attention to the next 2 steps, because they will be the most difficult to follow. Your television will suddenly turn on at exactly 3:42 a.m. When this happens, you have exactly 5 seconds to hide. It doesn't matter where, just hope and pray to dear God he doesn't find you. To increase your chances of survival, hold your breath for as long as you can. Don't worry too much, he's never around for long. When the TV goes off, wait another minute before coming out again. If you hear him laugh, he tricked you and you're too late. Your only chance then would be to scream as loud as you can and pray someone knocks on your door and asks if you're alright. If they do, you must open the door, but do not leave. Keep it open for the rest of the night. The only consequence to this is that you might see others peeking in once in a while. Never look at them for too long. If you do, they'll take it as an invitation to come in. They're never friendly. 14. If you successfully avoid him, feel free to relax a bit at this point. You are now free to watch TV and turn on any electronic devices again. However, prepare yourself for an unexpected visitor. You will hear a knock at the door before 5. Answer it, and act casual. Don't ever talk about what you're experiencing. That person will want to spend some time with you, do whatever makes them happy. Depending on how you treat them, they might extend their visit and want to spend time with you for the rest of the night. If they do, continue to act normal, but make sure you never fall asleep when they are with you, no matter how tired you may feel. If you do, you won't wake up. They might also ask you to go out with them somewhere. This is the one thing you cannot do for them, and you must find something else for them to do without upsetting them. On the off chance that they ask you odd questions that might come out of nowhere, answer honestly. 15. When the sun starts to rise, you're safe to finally leave your room. Don't ever rely on the wall clock to tell you the time, it will try and deceive you. 16. When you leave your room, don't attempt to leave the building unless you see someone at the front desk. An old lady will ask you to help bring in her things from her car. Don't listen to her. She will be stubborn, but by no means listen to a word she says. 17. If no one is at the front desk by the time you hear the grandfather clock in the lobby strike 7, immediately return to your room. You unfortunately might not have any other choice but to stay one more night. As you can see, I was stupid enough to ignore the first rule, and now every once in a while I will get a phone call from an unknown number. I had to keep my phone on silent mode because of this. For some reason, I can't turn it off either. I'm assuming whatever it is doesn't want me to. They would leave voicemails for us, and Trina was the first to actually listen to one of them. She told me that it sounded like her father, telling her how much he missed her, and asking her to call him back when she had the chance. Her father passed away 3 years ago. This of course freaked her out, and it only seemed to get a lot worse when the tapping on the window started up. As much as I wanted to pull the curtain back to reassure her we were alright, possibly finding out it was just a loose tree branch or something making such a noise, a gut feeling told me to stay where I was. I told Trina this and somehow managed to talk her out of looking behind the curtain as well. If we hadn't decided to go to bed early the moment we arrived, we probably would have been watching TV and or listening to the radio. I'm so glad none of us decided to do that. I can't imagine what we would hear if we did, and I don't ever want to find out. It was around midnight when Trina decided she couldn't take it anymore. She had convinced herself that this little prank being pulled on us was going way too far, and she was going to go down to the lobby and inform the front desk about what was going on. I tried to stop her, but this time nothing I said worked. It's been over an hour now and she still hasn't come back. Right now the tapping has died down, but now I hear whispering. It's very faint, but it's there. I'm on my bed typing this and God, it's so hard to keep my hands from shaking. I already have 5 missed calls and 3 different voicemails, and of course I delete them, but they keep making more. I really need to try and calm down, maybe drink some water or something. I don't think the bell boy is coming, but I'll remember to keep you guys informed if anything else happens. Until then. Update, it's just past 3, and I have exactly 24 minutes before I can expect that mystery guy to show up. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm terrified. As soon as I posted my last message, the tapping thankfully stopped. The whispering was still there, but that too eventually went away. I'm still not going to open the curtain. I already broke one rule, I can't afford to see what happens if I break another. The phone unfortunately did ring. The woman on the other line had a rather deep voice. The first thing she told me to do was remove the clothing from my luggage and throw it all in the bathtub. She then told me to find the hotel's Bible and tear out all the pages located in John. I am a religious woman. I grew up with a Christian mother and Catholic father. As strange as this may sound to some, it pained me to do that, but I refused to find out what she would do to me if I disobeyed. Lastly, she told me to open the mini fridge and remove all the beverages before placing them in a circle on the floor. Her requests were definitely strange, but nonetheless I did them. In fact, I would have done a handstand while reciting the alphabet if she told me to, ridiculous as that sounds. I just wanted her to leave me alone. Hopefully the next time she calls, Her requests will be just as simple. The children did show up, both the boy and the girl. They looked around the ages of 7 and 8, and were both dressed all in white. She had very long black hair, but the boy had short blonde hair. They looked nothing alike. As predicted, she did ask me if I wanted to play with them, and I thankfully managed to tell her with my best smile that I would play with her in the morning. My voice was shaky, but they seemed to understand me. However, it didn't stop there, and she continued to persist that I played with her. I never told her no. There was a point I did almost slip up, and I swear to you her childish pout turned into the most disdainful scowl I've ever seen. Her eyes widened a bit, and there was something about her that practically screamed danger if I didn't think fast enough. I don't exactly remember our conversation, but in the end I managed to convince her that I would play hide and seek with her after breakfast, and that seemed to please her. She bragged about being the best seeker for a bit, and finally thanked me before running off. The boy followed without a word, and the moment both of them rounded the corner I quietly closed the door. I didn't even have time to fully turn around before the bathroom light flickered on. I tripped on one of the beverage cans while scrambling for the bed, which did something to my ankle unfortunately. It still hurts like all get out, but I somehow managed to get back to bed no sooner than I needed to. I closed my eyes before realizing I didn't throw the covers over me, but the bathroom door was already creaking opening, and the air immediately went cold. Whatever came out had extremely light footsteps. It sort of sounded like a small dog wandering around, but at the same time, it was quite obvious the thing would tower over me if I ever dared to stand beside it. I know this because whatever it was approached my bedside, and it loomed over me close enough to feel a great amount of body heat. It never made a sound. I couldn't hear it breath, and it never said a word, but I could feel the intensity of its gaze. My ankle was throbbing, and I bit my lip so hard it drew blood. I don't know how long it was there, but I know I wasn't very quiet. I couldn't help but let out a few whimpers in both pain and fear. I'm still shaking from the experience, but I don't think it seemed to care, so long as I kept my eyes closed. It left at some point, but even after hearing the door close, I couldn't shake off the feeling of it staring me down. I never felt so small and helpless in my life, and unfortunately, I'm still balled up in a fetal position on the bed, just how it left me. Guys, I don't know what to do. Again, some of you might not understand this, and it might sound silly, but I always believe that God is with you no matter what situation you're in. I don't feel that now. I feel completely and utterly alone. Has everything been a lie? Have I been following someone who never existed to begin with? Why would he ever put me through something like this? What did I ever do to deserve this? It's 3:37. I have 5 minutes left. God help me. Save me. Trina hasn't come back yet. I miss her so much, but if what the list says is true, I'm never going to see her again. If you're still reading this, thank you for getting this far. If I do survive, I'm going to tell you what happens in the morning. Until then, thank you for reading what I have to say. My name is Christina Mores. Please tell my family I love them, and that I'm sorry I can't wish them all goodbye. I stayed at the new luxury hotel with my best friend, but on our very first night, I was given a set of rules that instructed me on how to stay alive. Part 2. Update 2. I found another note. Someone slid it under my door about an hour ago. Well, as you can see, I made it through the night. I'm alive, but regrettably, I'm also somehow still in hell. Before I start, I would like to thank you all for your words of encouragement. I know many of you are thinking that I'm either making this all up, or just someone who's looking to write a good story for the sake of entertainment, but I can assure you, everything I'm experiencing is real. Whether or not you believe what you've read so far is up to you, but I want to thank you nonetheless for being here. It's silly, but interacting with you guys was really the only thing keeping me sane. There are no words to describe how grateful I am to all of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Anyways, a lot had happened. A lot. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this place is very keen on letting me go. The man did come to my room last night. I saw his footsteps. I also saw he wore a very black suit, darker than any color I have ever seen before. His face was not very visible, but to best describe it, all I could see were his very thin, very dry lips, widened to an unsettling degree. He paced the room several times, whistling some sort of tune. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it sounded like an old nursery rhyme. I don't remember the name, sorry. The room dropped in temperature drastically, and despite holding my breath, I was fairly certain he would catch me because my heartbeat was so loud. I'm not sure how smart it was to hide under the bed, but that's exactly what I did. He looked through the closet door, then paced the room again several more times, but that's all he really did. He didn't exactly leave through the front door, he just, well, left. Much like how he came, he was just gone. I can't describe it any other way. I waited several more minutes before coming out again, and thankfully I didn't hear any laughter. According to the other letter, I had plenty of time before 5 to expect my unexpected visitor. My ankle is still very sore. I know now that I fractured it somehow, but I've been using one of the water bottles to help numb the pain. They're still pretty cold, and I removed one of the pillow covers to wrap it up to use as a temporary ice pack. I cried for the rest of that night. I can't recall the last time I ever cried so hard. I wanted to go home. I still want to go home. The money both Trina and I saved up for all these years, we wasted it. We unknowingly exchanged it for our lives. How the hell has this place not been demolished? Why hasn't anyone noticed? Am I the only one who's survived for this long? Will they even let me leave? There's just so many questions, and I know there's a very good chance I'll never get any answers. It was around 5 when I got a knock on the door. I managed to limp my way over to it, trembling in fear. I'm not sure if I was supposed to look through the peephole then. It never stated in the note if I could at this time, but I did, and wouldn't you believe it? The visitor was Trina. After pulling her inside, she started asking me what was wrong, but all I could do was hold her and bawl my eyes out into her chest. She didn't really make any effort to comfort me, only asking me over and over again what was wrong, stuff like, did something happen? Are you alright? Why are you crying? She asked question after question, and the more she asked the more worried she sounded. I don't know exactly how long I cried for, but after calming down I did manage to get a better look at her. Trina was taller, and her hair was a bit longer, but besides that she didn't look much different. At least at the time she didn't. Of course, things only started getting weirder from there. Putting aside the rules for a moment, I started asking her my own questions, like where she went, and why she was gone for so long. I know it probably wasn't the best decision, but I had to make more of an effort to not break down again, and asking questions, especially ones that could be answered and explained, it was an action that did help keep my mind off of the terror surrounding me, even for a little bit. Not to mention keeping my sanity in check. Unfortunately for me, her smile was unsettling, and her teeth were somehow brighter than I remembered. She told me she decided to go for a short walk before bed, and apologized for not inviting me to go along with her. Before I could say anything else, her smile widened in delight, and she asked me a question that filled me with dread. Would you like to go with me this time? You seem stressed. I froze. As stupid as it was, I did. She asked me again if I was alright, grabbing me by the hand and slowly started leading me towards the door. I yelped in pain as my ankle throbbed. She didn't seem to pay mind to it and continued leading me to the room's exit. I tried pulling away, but her grip was firm. My voice was gone, silenced by the fear alone. I was trembling so much it was hard to even stand on my own 2 feet. The moment she had her hand on the door handle, I, thankfully, somehow managed to finally say something in a very small tone. I told her no. Now, this is when I started noticing something else was definitely off with her. Her movements were slow, but she did stop to turn to me, confused. Well, why not? My throat was so dry then. Everything just hurt. It was frustrating that she refused to acknowledge the poor condition I was in, something very unlike the Trina I knew, the Trina I grew up with. This thing. It wasn't her. Whatever I was interacting with wasn't Trina. She's a nurse, well, at least going to school to be one, and as annoying as it was sometimes, she would once in a while lecture me about my health, about how I ate too much fast food or didn't exercise enough. Trina would have never overlooked something as noticeable as a sprained ankle, not to mention overlook how much pain I was in. For someone who would coddle me for even getting the smallest paper cut, this just couldn't be her. After racking my brain a bit, I came up with an excuse, something about wanting to go to bed because I was too tired to do anything else, and that I already stayed up later than usual to watch that old drama flick we both liked. That seemed to do the trick. She actually took it better than I anticipated, but it did seem to somewhat disappoint her. Her hand did not leave mine, grip still tight and unwavering, but with this I managed to bring us both over back towards our beds. Well, do you want something to eat? I could get us some room service. She had offered, and no way in hell was I going to let her call in that bellboy, or anyone else for that matter, into this room. Even if nothing about this was mentioned in the rules, I wasn't taking any chances. No, that's fine. If you're not tired, we could always just, talk I guess. My voice was still trembling. I'm surprised she understood me, but then again, she also didn't seem to notice how afraid I was. She shrugged. Sure. What about? I had to remind myself over and over again to play along, to pretend that whoever this is or whatever this is, was Trina, and that I had to treat her like Trina. I brought up some topics and questions about nursing school, once or twice bringing up our favorite TV show and talking about the latest episodes, and what we would love to see next. She never missed a beat, and was even optimistic when talking about the test she recently took. Her words were genuine, but I couldn't get over how unsettling her smile was. It looked wider, her teeth were brighter. She looked human, but at the same time she was all off. I don't know how else to describe it. The longer we talked, the more and more tired I felt. I was exhausted, but as instructed, I by no means fell asleep. I refused to be left vulnerable with that thing. She did ask me one particular question I found odd, something to do with the last time I thought about taking my own life. It put me off guard, but I told her honestly that I never thought of anything of the sort. Life meant a lot to me. It still does. She only gave a brief nod before changing the topic, going on about one of her favorite professors and how cute he was. I never noticed the sun coming up until she pointed it out herself. Her whole demeanor changed, and she gave a heavy sigh. I'm not sure if it was in relief or defeat. Man, we didn't get a lot of sleep, did we? She mentioned, once again slightly disappointed. Maybe we should at least try and get an extra hour in before heading out. Sure, I said. But, could you first go downstairs and see what's for breakfast? If we're having French toast, I want to be the first one in line. Also, feel free to bring up some coffee or something if that's also ready. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I guess I should be giving myself a little more credit for coming up with so many excuses on the spot. It worked again. She smiled once more, and then got up. We stared at one another for a moment, and I swear the air felt a lot cooler. Reluctantly, she eventually agreed, and told me to call her if I needed anything from the lobby. And then she was gone. It took her a bit to get to the door, but the moment it closed behind her I felt a huge sense of relief. It was finally over. I could get out of here. Not knowing if I should take my things out of the tub, I just left it there and only took my suitcase. I would be missing my favorite dress, but clothes could always be replaced, and the both of us planned on going on a huge shopping spree while we were here anyways, so I didn't pack much. No one was at the front desk when I got there, but it wasn't 7 yet. I rang the service bell a few times, but no one came. At some point, an old lady did come out of the elevator, carrying with her 2 very large bags. She asked me if I could help her out. Remembering the rules, I told her no, and pointed to my now swollen ankle. I think that shocked her, because she asked me what happened, even offered to drive me to the hospital. I lied and told her I was waiting for my friend to come down. That didn't help at all. It took me more effort than expected to get rid of her, and the more I denied her offer the angrier she seemed to get. She finally did leave me alone after one of the hotel staff members came by to aid her. They both gave me a really nasty look before heading outside to God knows where. I waited for what seemed like an eternity, and for the most part I almost wish it was, because anything would have been better than going back in that room. But it happened. The clock struck 7, and I screamed. I screamed and cried, begging someone to come out to the front desk, but no one did. I begged and begged, I even tried to jump the counter to see if anyone was back there, but a gut feeling told me not to, and instead I angrily threw the bell at the door, realizing then that I would have to spend another night in absolute hell. Guys, what should I do? I haven't seen anyone since yesterday, not even the maids. I don't know who else to ask, and even if I could ask, I think I would be too afraid to. Well, as you've probably figured out, I'm at the moment back in my hotel room typing this up. The new letter has the exact same rules as before, but there's a message in it this time along with a few more rules. I'll type as followed. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I never figured out why they decided to keep some survivors for more than one night, but hopefully you are still well enough to push forward. I once again strongly suggest you follow steps 1 through 17 like before. And I hate being the one to tell you this, but here are some more rules that you more than likely need to follow to see another day. 18. They now know you by name. They will start calling out to you by the window. Don't ever answer, and don't ever go to look. 19. At around midnight, it's possible the bellboy will knock on your door again asking if you ordered room service. However, this time he'll be a bit more persistent. If he answers the usual, don't open the door. If he says anything else, tell him to leave it by the door. Wait until he leaves to retrieve the dish. Don't ever look through the peephole. 20. If you retrieve the dish, don't ever eat what's in it. Instead, dump it all in the waste bin. He will come back for your dish this time and ask you about the meal. You will tell him it was delicious. Thank you and nothing more. He will ask for the dishware back. Don't ever respond, and whatever you do, do not open the door. He will go away. 21. The phone will ring for you, and you will once again hear the woman at the front desk. One of two things might happen. She will either give you instructions to follow like last time, or you will hear her scream bloody murder. If the latter happens, I'm sorry. 22. If you didn't hear her scream, and you've successfully completed her tasks, congratulations. 23. Now, here it once again gets a little tricky. There is another chance that someone will knock at your door again. Open the door. If it's a man, he will ask you if you've seen his hat. Tell him yes, and that you actually turned it into lost and found. He will thank you and leave. Don't gawk at his appearance. If no one is at the door, you must go 2 doors down to your left and knock on their door 3 times. Kindly ask them to stop knocking on your door, and that if they really need someone, contact the front desk. You will hear footsteps approaching the door afterwards. Make it back to your room before they catch you. 24. I left something for you under your bed. It's for emergencies only, so please only use it if, and when necessary. 25. We don't keep paintings in the guest rooms. If you see one, turn it over and ignore anything they try to tell you. Well, there's a painting of a woman in the bathroom. She's blonde and is wearing a sundress, posing in what looks to be some sort of curtsy while also smiling happily at something to the left of her. I turned it over as mentioned. I can't remember if it was even there in the first place when we arrived, but I think I hear it sobbing. That, or I really am going crazy. This place, this hotel, it's not normal. I don't know what else to say, except now I'm afraid to pee in a bathroom that's probably haunted by some weird painting, if not worse. Who's leaving these notes for me? I never really considered how or why this person is trying to help me, or how many others have they helped, or why they only leaving notes. It's practically killing me having all these questions, and no one to ask for answers. I'm exhausted. I really miss Trina. I don't think I've quite accepted the fact that I'll never see her again. What am I supposed to tell her family? What am I supposed to tell mine? For some reason, my phone glitches out every time I try making a call, brining me back to the lock screen before I have the chance to scroll through my contact list. A part of me is still convinced this is all some horrible nightmare, but I know that it can't be, because my ankle is throbbing and won't allow me to. I can hardly move. I'm not sure if I even will make it tonight because of this. I'm so scared. I can't stop crying, and I'm so tired. I can't pray. I don't have the energy. It's currently been about 3 hours since I've been back. I can hear people now going about the hallway like normal. I don't know if they're real, or something the hotel is fabricating. I'm going to try and get as much rest as I can. When tonight comes, I don't know if I will see it tomorrow, but I'll be damned if I don't try. All I can do is try. I don't want to die, not like this. Not by the hands of this hotel. I want to live. There's nothing more I've ever wanted. I'll try updating again if I somehow make it, but because the odds aren't exactly in my favor, I want to thank you all once again for being here with me. For comforting me. I know Trina would appreciate you guys too, so I want to thank you on her behalf as well. I wish you nothing but happiness, but whatever you do, don't stay here. Don't stay at the recreation hotel. Don't ever make the same mistake I did. Life is wonderful, don't ever take it for granted. Love you all, and I know this might sound broken by now, but thank you for being here. Until then. I stayed at the new luxury hotel with my best friend, but on our very first night, I was given a set of rules that instructed me on how to stay alive. Part 3. Update 3. I made it. I'm alive, but as crazy as this may sound, it was the devil himself that saved me. Well, sort of. Allow me to start from the beginning. According to the doctors, I was pronounced dead on the scene when paramedics arrived. I've been in the hospital now for over a week, asleep for most of it, but now that I have the energy, I can finally get back to you guys. With some effort I did manage to fall asleep, but I somehow awoke to the sound of my name being called. The voices were once again coming from the window, but they were much louder. Sometimes they were soft, curious even. They would call out to me in murmurs, no more than a whisper. Thankfully the curtains were still closed from last night. The sobbing in the bathroom turned into agonizing moans. It was the voice of a woman crying over and over again, "It hurts. Please. I need air, please." I broke down again, shedding tears that seemed to be endless, because it was all so much. It was just too much. I'm a bit of a crybaby, you see. Was never the brave one according to my father, always reminding me that I was a woman now, and that I needed to face my fears head on if I wanted to go anywhere in life. Though, I don't think either of us would have ever predicted something like this would happen, so I like to think he would have given me a pass this time for acting out. I think at some point I asked the voices to stop, to just go away and leave me alone. As if acting in defiance, they only got louder, and the sobbing in the bathroom turned to panic cries for help. As if on K, there was a knock at the door. The timer on my phone displayed 11:00 p.m. Yes, I neglected to shut it off again before falling asleep. That was a poor mistake on my part, and a voice called out from the hallway. "Room service for Ms. Moraes." He knocked again when I didn't respond, louder with more force. "Hello? Ms. Moraes? You did order room service, right?" "Yes," I answered shakily, thinking back to Rule 4. I forgot to mention that I went over the rules again before taking that long nap. I even folded them up and kept it in my pocket in case I needed them again. "What did you bring?" "The usual, Ms. Don't open the door. If he tells you anything else, tell him to leave it by the door." I kept my mouth shut, even holding my breath for the most part. After a minute or so I thought he was gone, but he knocked again and continued calling out to me. "Hello? Is everything okay? Do you need me to come in and put it down for you? Ms. Moraes?" He knocked one more time, but a moment of silence followed before, "Please let me in." I hiccuped, as a strong urge came over me to actually open the door. He sounded desperate. Helpless. He reminded me of a previous encounter I had with my young cousin, during a time when he came to visit us one year for Christmas with my uncle and aunt. He had a nightmare his first night over, and came to my door begging me to let him in to stay the night in my room. I felt sorry for the bellboy, or at least the thing behind my door. You can leave it by the door," I managed to say, and after another beat of silence I heard something being placed on the floor, followed by footsteps leading itself away from the room. I waited some more before limping over to the entryway, taking the risk of looking through the door's small peephole. He was gone. The dish was heavy, and inside contained nothing but raw meat, and I'm certain it was all expired due to the wretched stench that came from it. I almost threw up as I scrapped it into the trash bin, and yes, the smell, unfortunately, took up the entire room, making hell itself somehow just a little worse. I also disposed the silver platter it all came from, covering the bin using Trina's bedsheets to try and mask the smell, which didn't really help at all, but it was better than nothing. The phone rang not long after I got back to my bed and she was screaming. The woman on the other line was screaming. And it was loud. I had to pull the phone away from my ear when she did so, and in shock it even slipped out of my hands and onto the floor. Rule 21. The phone will ring for you, and you will once again hear the woman at the front desk. One of two things might happen. She will either give you instructions to follow like last time, or you will hear her scream bloody murder. If the latter happens, I'm sorry. It felt as if a stampede started making its way down the hall and towards my room, the screaming getting louder and more apparent along with it. I whimpered and practically dove myself back onto the bed where I left the little box, the gift the stranger behind the notes left for me in case of an emergency. I also forgot to tell you in my last update what it was, sorry about that, and inside the box was a small gold coin, along with it a single sheet of paper neatly folded up behind it. Inside the sheet was written "consume when necessary" in very blotchy letters. I don't even think they used ink to write it. My hands fumbled with the thing before I finally got it in my mouth, and the moment I swallowed she finally burst through the door. The sight was absolutely maddening. Her jaw was dragging itself on the floor, all four limbs much longer than her thinly clothed torso, perching the body off the floor as it crawled over to me with great speed. Its screams turned into an ear-piercing screech as the ground shook wildly. And then I woke up. I was in bed again. Tucked in safely, as if nothing had happened. My body was covered in sweat, and a heavy gasp escaped me the moment I sat up. The voices behind the windows have ceased, and the wailing in the bathroom had also seemed to disappear. The only thing that remained from before was the smell, and that time I actually did throw up because of it. Everything seemed to fall completely silent afterwards. It was unsettling how quiet it was. The only thing that could really be heard was heavy breathing and my rapid heartbeat. That woman. There was no trace of her whatsoever. It was as if she was never there. Her horrifying disfigurement, the screaming, it all still haunts my dreams, and will probably do so for a very long time. Whatever was in that box, it saved me. Or at least I think it did. It clearly did something nonetheless. I only had so much time to rest before I needed to follow the next rule, but at least it was enough to find my now useless temporary water bottle ice pack. I managed to take a couple sips from it after heaving out whatever I ate before all this mess, probably plain food. It helped just enough to clear my head, even easing some of the trembling from my sweaty palms. The bathroom light came on without warning, but this time there was no sound of a toilet flushing or the sink running. Rule 9. If the lights come on suddenly, you need to make your way into the bathroom. Look in the mirror and tell your reflection now's not the time. Maybe later. If the lights go out again, you're fine. If they don't, ask your reflection, what time should we meet again? If your reflection responds, thank it, and only take your leave when the lights finally go out. My ankle throbbed as I limped over to the bathroom. It felt so much worse the longer I was on it, but through pure adrenaline I still managed to get around well enough to do whatever needed to be done. At least during certain moments. The mirror never lies, that was made certain the moment I saw my own reflection. My hair was stringy, the mascara and foundation I had applied days ago streaky and absolutely horrid. I barely recognized myself. Clearing my throat while also straightening myself out, I repeated the words written. Now's not the time, maybe later? I was never the talker, not to mention someone who would talk to themselves, in the mirror no less, so it felt really strange. It wasn't normal, at least when you're not giving yourself a motivational speech normal. Nothing happened. The longer I stood there, the more uneasy I felt. Standing there, covered in sweat, and looking at someone who would normally have smooth makeup on even on off days, it was unnerving, and a little bit humiliating considering the sorry state I was in. With a breath, I reluctantly continued. What time should we meet again? It took me 2 tries to say that, knowing very well that at some point my reflection was to respond, and nothing could have ever prepared me for that. She smiled. She laughed. She cried. It was a wave of emotions happening all at once. I don't know how else to describe it. It almost looked like she was glitching, and with every glitch showed a different emotion. Every emotion I have probably ever felt. At some point, she finally settled back to a neutral expression, completely ignoring the mortified look I was giving her. Then she ever so slowly started tilting her head, tilting it to a normal degree, almost as if curious, until it just snapped. An unsettling crunch echoing off the walls as her neck snapped into the most unnatural position, smile wider and higher than anyone's cheekbones could ever handle, pupils dilated to the point they were almost too small to see. I screamed, and she was saying something. I don't know what. It was unintelligible. Demonic. It sounded nothing like me. I fell to the floor, screaming louder and louder the longer it stared at me, watching my every move. Laughing. I backed into the tub, doing something to my ankle that had me screaming for a whole different reason. It continued to laugh at me, and the lights started flickering rapidly. Shut up. Shut up. I screamed at it, over and over again. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I covered my ears, I closed my eyes, I just wanted it to go away. I wanted the thing to leave me alone. It wasn't me. It was a monster. I don't know what it was. It did eventually grow quiet when the lights stopped flickering, my own shameless shrieking being the only thing making any sound in the small restroom. I slowly uncovered my ears, opening my eyes, blurry and sore, and looked back up to my reflection once again, somewhat back to normal with a neutral expression. We stared at one another, and I'm sure I looked much worse by that point than whatever was staring back at me. It was waiting for something, and I wasn't sure what until I remembered the final step to the rule. My throat was hoarse, dry and unforgiving, but I managed to get enough breath and sound out to say it. Thank you. And just like that, the lights flickered off. It was cold. I was once again alone. Slowly I started to get up, realizing that the stuff I tossed in the tub was no longer there. My belongings were all gone, and I still don't care where they are. I'm never going back to find out either. Shutting the door to the bathroom, I started limping back over to the bed, shaken and soiled. I felt so heavy. So helpless. Someone started knocking on the front door, the bellboy asking if I liked the meal. I nodded and responded, and whatever I said, thankfully worked because he did not come back. I fell on the bed, gross and absolutely defeated. My cell phone remained by my bedside. I think it's been there since the moment I woke up in bed, and looking at it, ignoring several missed calls and voicemails, I saw that it was just a little over 2 in the morning. And knowing that, I nodded off. Looking back on it now, it definitely wasn't the smartest thing to do, but I've already messed up more than once by this point, and I had convinced myself that screwing up one more time wouldn't necessarily hurt, and if it did, something was bound to put me out of my misery. Another knock at the door woke me up with a start, the noise heavy and demanding. I had to pull out my second note again to remember the man looking for his hat, or what was supposed to be him. When I opened the door, no one was there, and gritting my teeth limped my way over 2 doors down as instructed. Before my hand made contact with the door, I remember considering the distance between this room and my own room, and how much more difficult it was going to be to run back in the poor state my ankle was in. So, to give myself more of a head start, I positioned myself as far away from the door as possible, but still close enough to knock. Not a very comfortable position, but it was all I could think of to handicap myself. So I knocked 3 times before quickly asking whoever was behind the door to stop knocking on my own door, and to contact the front desk if they really needed something. I didn't stick around to hear the footsteps, limping away as soon as possible. But I wasn't fast enough. I was just a couple of steps away from my room before I heard the door behind me creak open. Something, in a very loud and sudden "hey," called out from behind me before they followed suit. Before I shut the door, a hand blocked the entrance, and I saw a pair of angry eyes staring back at me. It was a very heavy-set looking man, his shirt, from what I could see in the pitch-black darkness of the hallway, covered in stains of unknown, his boxers too small for him. I mercilessly continued to try and push the door closed despite this, going so far as to throw my body against it as he swore in pain, anger only worsening the more effort I put into my weakened strength. "What the hell are you doing? Why are you knocking on my door so late? Bitch, if you wanted IT so badly you could have called or something." The hand somehow managed to get a chunk of my hair and it pulled hard. My head hit the wood of the doorway, and I screamed for him to let go, but his boisterous demands easily overpowered my own. Instinctively I continued to pull away like a trapped animal, successfully yanking my head away hard enough to break free, but losing chunks of hair in the process. I slammed the door shut then, locking it for extra measure before the man started pounding heavily against the wood. I was certain the door would break, even with my body pressed firmly against it, but he eventually gave a final angry growl before storming off. I could hear his door slam shut, flinching as it did. More silence came soon after. I slumped to the floor, reaching up to feel a certain bald spot on the right side of my head. It didn't feel too serious, but it still burned to the touch, sore and weak like the other parts of me. A bit of blood also painted the tips of my fingers. I'm still not sure it was mine or the man's. Or what looked like to be a man. I'm guessing I blacked out at this point because I don't remember anything happening after that, but I do remember hearing another damn knock at the door, and I had to crawl out of the fetal position I put myself in to look through the peephole. It was the little boy. Not the little girl and the little boy. Just the little boy. There was nothing about that in the rules, so I didn't open it. The knocking continued, but they were persistent. He knocked and knocked. I covered my ears again and bit my lip from saying anything, not wanting to draw attention. I didn't know what to do, but what I did then was clearly the wrong move, because the door behind me unlocked itself with a faint click, and it slowly started to open. My weight wasn't good enough this time, and the door opened all the way, wide and bearing. We stared at one another, and I noticed that he held something in his hand. It was Trina's cell phone. "Where did you get that?" I asked without realizing what I said, but before I could regret it he held it behind his back. "You'll only get this back when you help me find her." What? He started to walk away, and I watched as he got further and further down the hallway, all the way up until he rounded the dark corner. Did he mean Trina? Did he know where she was? I missed her, but I wasn't ready to do anything that would put my life on the line again. I didn't want to know what was behind that corner, nor did I want to know what he actually meant by her. But of course, the door refused to budge. It didn't even make an effort to close no matter how hard I pushed. I think I tried bargaining with it at some point, I'm not sure, but it didn't work either way. So, I followed. I took my time, hesitating when I got near the door across from my neighbor. Everything seemed to darken the further I went, and by the time I neared the corner, a door slammed shut from behind me, and after turning around I had absolutely no idea anymore which room was mine. The room numbers, they were just gone. Fear had its way with me once again, and I found it difficult to move from my current spot. I didn't want to. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die, I couldn't. Not there. Well, I didn't, as you've noticed, but I almost did. Something behind me made a noise, I don't know what noise, but when I turned around again, it was the bellboy. It looked like a bellboy, except he was very, very tall. I couldn't make out anything but the brightness of the uniform. Whatever it was, whoever it was, started approaching me, and making one final effort to get away, I ran. I ran as fast and as capable as an injured ankle could get me. Around the corner was another hallway, a longer one. And around that one was another, and then another. They didn't seem to end. I'm still amazed by how far I got before I finally spotted the young boy again, only this time he was in the elevator, and the doors were starting to close. I screamed at him to wait, I begged for him to keep the doors open. But he just smiled, a smile far more unsettling than his sister, but one very similar to the thing in the mirror. A hand suddenly then squeezed my shoulder and spun me around, leaving me face to face with the bellboy. It had no face. Its fingers were long and claw-like. I could no longer scream. I couldn't make a sound. The thing bent down, bringing its face closer to mine. A sound comes out of it, one resembling a human voice. A few of them. It spoke no louder than a whisper. So warm, so soft, please let me in. And then it opened up. Its mouth, I mean. Or at least I think it was a mouth. Something small, tiny spider-like beings came crawling out, presumably thousands. The hand holding my shoulder kept me in place, and those things started crawling all over me. Into my mouth, my ears, my nose. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. I'm certain a few of them managed to get under my eyelids and fingernails as well, and, as you can imagine, the pain was absolutely unbearable. I never want to feel that way again. Then something else was pulling me back, away from the bellboy. It dragged me across the floor and into what I think now the elevator, but I'm still unsure of where it brought me. High-pitched screaming, a sound made similar to the woman on the phone, could be heard from the bellboy's direction. I remember the vibrations of the floor, and even the walls around me. But whatever was dragging me, it brought me to a place that kept me far away from whatever chaos it left behind. Something sharp entered my neck, and instantly I could feel again. I could breathe, I could hear and somehow even see. I could scream. Something covered my mouth as I tried backing away, a hand. It was difficult to make out my surroundings. I still can't tell you where I was, I genuinely don't know, but I did recognize the familiar faint smell of that rotten meat. It spoke to me, harshly pulling out whatever it used in my neck. I'm sorry. That wasn't part of the deal. What just happened to you, I mean? I wanted to say something, but the hold on my mouth only tightened. It was a man's voice. Nothing like the bellboy, and nothing like the man 2 doors down. He sounded normal. The heat emitting from his hand felt normal. I think it was an actual person that saved me. I can't tell you too much, but those notes I left for you, everything you needed to know was on there. However, they deviated from their normal behavior. Their normal routine, I should say. Despite this, you did everything right, so I'm going to let you go. Of course, everything I heard is paraphrasing what I recall him saying. I still don't understand what he meant by part of the deal or how whatever those things were didn't stick to protocol. Was it some sort of test? Is the hotel some kind of experiment? Again, more questions, and I have been given 0 answers. I don't know what he did to me after that, but according to the nurse, she said that I was found in my room unconscious, and that they only found me when a maid came in to clean the room. My parents were called, of course, and they flew in to take care of me. They're staying in a motel close to the hospital, and thank God for that. I haven't told them what happened. I know that no one will believe me. That doesn't stop them from trying to get me to tell them though. After some thought, this is something I've decided to take to my grave. I don't want to be admitted into a psychiatric facility. I don't need to. At least, I don't think so. Not yet. The nightmares are still there. I still see them. I can't even look at my own reflection without having some sort of panic attack. I really don't know what to do from here. Trina is still missing. Her mother has reached out to several local news networks to try and find her. Police have already come by to question me, and unfortunately yes, I am a suspect to her disappearance. Her mother refuses to speak with me, and according to my own mother, she blames me for everything that's happened to her daughter. Trina is my best friend. I would never hurt her, and it breaks my heart knowing she thinks this way. I miss her so much, but I almost want to cry not because of her disappearance, but because I actually managed to make it out of that hell alive. I'm sorry if I'm not the hero you wanted me to be. The one who tells you that everything's fine now. And that I'll be going back to find Trina and save her. No. I'm never stepping foot in that place again. I can't. I'll lose whatever sanity I have left if I even look at that building again. Oh, I also went and found their website. All the reviews are a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. Nothing from no one reviewing about the hell of what happened to me. I just can't wrap my head around that. I can't be the only one who has been through this. I tried to leave a review of my own as well, but before I could submit it the whole site glitched and kicked me out. I tried several times, but the same thing would happen. I'm on the brink of crying just thinking about it. Please. If you've also experienced this, please reach out to me. I just can't be alone on this. I can't be the only survivor. Right? Also, for those who haven't even heard of this place, or at least thought about going. Don't. I beg you. Just please don't. I hope I sound like a broken record, because I need you to listen to me and take my warning very seriously. I'm not sure if the hotel will find my story on Reddit, but on the chance that they do, please spread this to as many people as possible. I'm still quite exhausted after all this, so I'll be resting here for a few more days. The doctor has been giving me medicine to help the pain in my ankle, but I don't want to take them. The doctor. He sounds like the man who saved me. I don't want to trust anyone who has come from that place, even the savior who supposedly got me out of there. I don't want to die. I don't want anything to do with that hotel. I just want to go home. Once again, thank you all for hearing me out. I know it's long, but thank you. And Trina, if you somehow ever read this, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.